Today we're going to discuss Lesson 11. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And I know that these lessons can sound abstract. If they sound abstract to you, there's a good reason for that. And that is because these lessons are helping us to practice witnessing what arises in our mental emotional field, because our deepest essence is the field of awareness that can witness both the conscious part, but also can witness the unconscious. And as long as the unconscious is not seen by the deepest part of who we are, the unconscious thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, actions are going to navigate our life, are going to be driving our life. And we're not going to recognize why we continue to have the same patterns over and over and over again. It's because the unconscious has been driving the show and we haven't seen it. And as we witness the unconscious, we start to become more and more aware of our truest, deepest essence, which is the field of vision that can see, not through physical eyes, because you can't see the unconscious through physical eyes. You see it through an internal vision. So with that as the background, let us read a little bit of that first paragraph. It says, "This is the first idea we have had that is related to a major phase of the correction process." So it's reminding us this whole workbook is helping us to correct the way that we perceive, which, back to the same metaphor, the correction process is starting to see the unconscious as well as what has always been conscious to us. That correction process, as I mentioned in the introduction to these videos, is going to transform the way we see ourselves and the way that we see the world, because this unconscious aspect hasn't been recognized, it hasn't been seen fully. And so therefore, once we see it, it changes the way we see everything, ourselves and others as well. So holding on to those first two lines as a foundation for the next few lines, let us move on. "It seems as if the world determines what you perceive." So let's use again the conscious and the unconscious, and then the world. So it says, "It seems as if the world determines what the conscious mind perceives." Today's idea introduces the concept that your unconscious thoughts determine the world that your conscious mind is seeing. That is another way to bring clarity to what this first paragraph is helping us to recognize. The last 10 lessons have been building up slowly, and we have a couple more lessons to go, but the last 10 lessons is a progression. We go one step at a time, becoming aware of this unconscious part of our mind. And it's a complete reversal of the thinking of the world, because we're no longer going to be so eager to strategize based on the lens of a fearful interpretation. We're going to become more open to pausing all of those strategies and witnessing the unconscious aspect that are driving all of those behaviors. And from there, we can take a different set of action. And so, of course, that makes sense why the lesson says, "Be glad indeed to practice the idea in its initial form. For in this idea is your release from all of that strategizing. In this idea is your release made sure. in practicing these lessons, we are being released from that constant, tiring strategizing to make the world different, because we're letting go of that and we're learning the reversal of the thinking of the world to see the unconscious aspect of our heart mind. And the key to forgiveness lies in it. And I want to take a pause to acknowledge that this is the first time that the word forgiveness is introduced in the workbook. And we've already covered a lot in what was just said, but I want to share a personal story around my own journey with this workbook, with forgiveness. And I think that that's going to help us have a concrete example of someone else who's done a lot of practice with the workbook. So once upon a time, I had this spiritual awakening where I understood why I wanted to study physics and engineering and why I wanted to connect to the universe. I didn't have words to it, but I did know that I had to be in alignment between what I think and what I feel. This was in 2017. In 2018, I left a highly successful engineering career to go and travel the world and open to the spiritual realm. I had no idea what I was doing, what I was looking for. And one of the first places that my intuition led me to was South America in the Amazon jungle with the Shipibo tribe. I had my first experience with plant medicine. I may put the full story in another video. I'm going to fast forward to 2020. In 2020, I had an insight to teach forgiveness. And I didn't know what that meant, but I was willing to teach forgiveness. And in that same year, the Course in Miracles came into my life. And I, out of borrowed faith, started to practice it. And in January of 2021, I had a dream that the Course in Miracles was helping me to integrate what plant medicine had shown me in ceremony. I still didn't have words to say what that was. But since 2021, I've been reading this book and practicing with it. And I've been wanting to share these lessons for years. And I would take myself to silent meditation retreats to integrate what these lessons were showing me. Long story short, I am invited to teach silent meditation retreats a year and a half before I started sharing the lessons of A Course in Miracles. So the reason I mention all of that is to give you an idea of how much time, devotion, practice I have given to these lessons. And it's lesson 11. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And it's the first time that forgiveness is introduced. And I want to share that story to highlight the power of these lessons. As I sit here to share these lessons with you, I observe my feeling and I notice there's something in my unconscious mind that is generating the sense of fear of not feeling ready, not knowing how to explain it, not knowing if the words are going to come out. All of these thoughts. And I have to recognize these thoughts and say to myself, oh, these thoughts don't mean anything. So what is forgiveness is my capacity to witness what is arising, the fear, the doubt, the insecurity, I'm not sure if they're going to understand. I don't know if I have the right words. If I didn't have the right words, thoughts from the past, back a few years ago, I may not have the words now. All of these thoughts are arising constantly, and I have to create space to see them because I've been practicing seeing them, and hold them with kindness and compassion, and forgive the part of me that was so identified with my own thoughts that I couldn't choose a different behavior that wasn't being driven by these unconscious thoughts. That is the process of forgiveness. And as you do that, you're going to be so glad that you have practiced these ideas, because in doing so, your release is made sure. The key to forgiveness lies in it. So I am sharing all of that as I'm hopeful that is a very concrete example that highlights a lot of the concepts that we've been practicing for the last 11 days. There's one more thing that I want to say about this lesson, and it's later in the page. It says, the introduction to this idea in particular should be practiced as casually as possible. It contains the foundation for peace, relaxation, and freedom from worry that we're all trying to achieve. And I want to highlight that as relevant because any sense of hurry is simply a habit pattern of our mind that we have used in the past to survive, to get things done, to learn something and get a good grade and move on. But the strategies that helped us survive are not the strategies that are going to help us awaken. Because as we awaken to the deepest essence that we are, we're going to learn through our own direct experience that our deepest essence is united with life itself, with qualities that are peaceful and relaxing and free from worry, free from judgment, free from hurry, because it's taking us out of this concept of time and rushing, and is bringing us more and more and more to presence. And presence can only be experienced in the present moment. In the present moment, through presence, we can relax. We can learn that we are safe. It is safe. It counters everything that we have used at a conscious level to survive in the past. But this is the whole journey. This is why the reversal of the thinking of the world is to be practiced, so that we can relax and trust that we're not separate from love. We're not separate from peace. We're not separate from life. And it's all happening in the present moment. So with that said, thank you for your practice, for your willingness to take these abstract concepts and take this journey and help yourself become more relaxed, more peaceful, more free, even if at an intellectual level, the practices appear abstract. Trust the process. Thank you for your practice, and I'll see you next time for lesson 12. Thank you.